Welcome to the Explainer. If you're getting ready for your PCI Level 1 or 2 exam, you already know that aggregate moisture control is a topic you absolutely positively have to nail. So today we're going to break down everything you need to know, not just for the test, but for the plant floor.
So let's just jump right in. You see wet sand and stone at the plant every day, right? But how much difference can a little bit of water really make in a massive batch of concrete? Well, this isn't just some question from a textbook. It's a real-world problem that can make or break every single batch you inspect.
The answer is a huge amount. In fact, it's pretty shocking. If you don't correct for that moisture, you could be secretly shorting your aggregate weight by 6%, while at the very same time, you're jacking up the free water in the mix by 50% or even more. That completely destroys your water-cement ratio and throws the entire mix design out the window.
So, to make sure you can master this, we're going to walk through 5 key areas. We'll start with the why, then get into the 4 states of aggregate, understand the different types of moisture, run through the actual calculations, and then, the most important part, correct the batch mix. Okay, first up, let's talk about why this is such a big deal. Honestly, this is one of the core challenges you face as a quality control inspector.
Here's the critical thing to get your head around. Moisture has a dual effect. It's a 2-for-1 problem. You see, the common mistake is to think, oh, the sand is red. I'll just cut back on the batch water. Nope, that only solves half the problem. You're still weighing water that you think is aggregate, which means you're not putting enough stone and sand in the mix. And that's a recipe for low strength.
All right, so to really understand how to fix this, you first need to know the 4 distinct moisture states of an aggregate. You've got to be able to identify these to do your job right. So here they are, the 4 conditions you're going to see out there. On one end of the spectrum, you have oven-dry aggregate, which is so thirsty it'll actually steal water from your mix. And on the complete other end, you have damp or wet aggregate, which of course adds extra water to the mix. Getting a handle on these 4 states is the essential first step before you can even think about doing any math. Now listen up. Circle this, highlight it, tattoo it on your arm if you have to, because this is a huge exam point. Saturated surface dry, or SSD, is our baseline. It's the gold standard. It's that perfect state where the aggregate's internal pores are totally full, but its surface is dry. In this state, it won't add water to the mix, and it won't take any away. Every correction we make is all about getting back to this perfect balance. Okay, let's dive into the vocabulary. You've got to know these 3 key terms inside and out if you want to calculate and talk about moisture content like a pro. First, we have absorbed moisture. The easiest way to think about this is to picture an aggregate particle as a tiny little sponge. This is the water that's been soaked up inside of it, filling up its pores. And the key thing to remember is this water is locked in. It's not going to become part of the mixing water. Next up is total moisture. This one's pretty simple. It is what it sounds like. It's all the water, period. It's the absorbed moisture we just talked about, plus any extra water that's hanging out on the outside surface of the particles. It's the whole shebang. And finally, we have free moisture. Now this is the troublemaker. This is the one that really matters for our corrections. It's the excess water that's just sitting on the surface of the aggregate, the water that's left over after all the internal pores are already full. This is the water that's going to mess up your water-cement ratio. And this simple little equation right here, this is the key that ties it all together. You have to memorize this. If you can figure out the total moisture and you know the absorption rate of your aggregate, you can always find the free moisture. It's just the total amount of water minus what's already been soaked up inside.
All right, enough theory. Let's get practical. It is time to turn all this talk into the actual numbers you're going to be calculating out in the plant.
First things first, we need to find the absorption percentage. Basically, how much water can our aggregate sponge hold? Now, following example A from your manual, the process is pretty straightforward. You weigh an SSD sample, you pop it in the oven to dry it out completely, and then you weigh it again. The difference in weight, that's your absorbed water. Just divide that by the dry weight, and boom, you've got your absorption percentage.
Next, we need to find the total moisture in our stockpile right now as it sits. The process is almost exactly the same. You grab a wet sample from the bin, you weigh it, then you oven dry it. That weight difference is the total water. And again, you just divide that by the dry weight to get your total moisture percentage. Easy enough, right?
And now we get to the magic number. This is where it all comes together. We simply take the total moisture we just measured, that's 6.40%, and we subtract the known absorption percentage we figured out earlier, and the result is our free moisture. In this case, it's 4.36%. That is the exact percentage of excess water that we need to account for in our mix. So,
You've got your free moisture percentage. Now what? Well, now it's time for the final, and I mean most important step, correcting the batch weights before a single drop of concrete is mixed.
Your task as the inspector is a really clear three-step process. First, you use your percentage to calculate the actual weight of that free water. Second, you add that water weight to the aggregate target weight. And third, you subtract that very same weight from the batch water. See what we did? We're just moving that water weight from the wrong column to the right column.
So let's see how this works in practice, using the numbers from example E in your manual. You have to do this for both your fine and your coarse aggregate. For each one, you find that free moisture percentage, and then you multiply it by the SSD weight from the original mix design. That gives you the exact pounds of excess water coming from each type of aggregate.
So in this example, we add the 43 pounds of water from the sand and the 14 pounds from the stone, and what do we get? Our magic number, 57 pounds. That is 57 pounds of water that was pretending to be aggregate. And your job is to put that weight back where it actually belongs.
And here it is, the final result, the payoff for all that work. On the left, you've got the original mix design, which assumes perfect SSD conditions. And on the right, you have the corrected weights that you must actually use. We added the water weight to the aggregates, and we subtracted that total of 57 pounds from the batch water. That is the mix that's going to produce spec-compliant concrete.
You know, this quote from your MNL 1116 manual really says it all. This isn't just a suggestion. It's not a nice to do. It is a fundamental, non-negotiable requirement of quality control for every single batch of concrete you will ever look at.
So there you have it. You now have the terms, the formulas, and the procedures to absolutely master aggregate moisture correction. But always remember, as an inspector, your job is one of constant vigilance. Moisture is just one piece of the puzzle. What are you going to do when the next variable, like aggregate gradation, changes without any warning?